listening to Speaking with One Voice with Rodney Payne. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, topics you'd like discussed on the show, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email us at rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. That's rpayne@onevoiceinc.org. You can also search for us on Acast, Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. Just look for Speaking with One Voice. Now, here's your host, Rodney Payne.
Hello and welcome to Speaking with One Voice. I am your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. We are back at it again this week for another episode of Speaking with One Voice, the podcast devoted to adding value to you and your leadership team. I always want to tell you thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your week to catch us here and to add value. I appreciate you being here, and I want to thank you. You've been signing up. I've seen you. You've been subscribing to our YouTube channel at Rodney R. Payne, and you're on our social media at Rodney R. Payne and our website, rodneyrpayne.com. We're just trying to be here to help you in any way that we can. Today, I want to talk to you about feedback, the catalyst for growth. Now, when we talk about this term feedback, it can be very touchy because what we want in feedback is we want something that helps us to grow and get better, but not so much the criticism that comes with it. What we'd like for feedback to be something that grows us, not that hurts us. So let's hop into this thing, because if you're going to be an effective leader, you got to have feedback. If you want growth within your organization, you have to have feedback. Organizations that have feedback understand how to grow. Here's the challenge. The one thing I will tell you is that in my organizations, everyone is eligible to receive feedback. Those who will not receive feedback are not able to offer feedback, which means they're not a cultural fit. So now, how do we get to this place of feedback where we can have authenticity, genuine concern, compassion? How do we get so what is feedback? Feedback is someone offering to you what they received from what you said, how you said it, what you provided, how you provided it, and how it made them feel. And so while we're in business to get results, we are still working with people. People capital is the most important asset you can have in any organization. So when we think about feedback in leadership, it's vital to have continuous feedback. I am back in my corporate America days, when we would have our evaluations, what they would do is they would ask us as the employee to basically rate ourselves. I hated that. I hate it because, you don't want to say anything bad about yourself. You don't want to say anything that makes you look bad, but you're not perfect, so you can't say you're perfect. And so you try to reword things to make them sound like they're positive when they're negative. And that becomes a challenge because you can't have authenticity in feedback. Leaders who create a culture where feedback is the order of the day, they deliver successful organizations. So continuous feedback is necessary for two reasons. One, it's going to help you to improve. And you always need to be improving as a leader and as a team player. And the second thing is about alignment. If you're not giving feedback, how do I know if I'm hitting my targets? Going back a few episodes ago, we talked about our goals being specific, being measurable, being achievable, relevant, and time-based. We talked about those things. If I'm not measuring, if feedback is not a part of my organization, how do I know how I'm doing? How do I know how I'm doing? Why is feedback so important? Well, one reason is because we all have blind spots. Oh, yes, you have them too. What's a blind spot? A blind spot is a place that is not your most flattering character trait, but it shows up. And everyone knows it or sees it except you. You may think it's okay, but really you're offensive when you do this thing that you do. Without feedback, blind spots can be motivation killers, momentum killers, and organization killers. So feedback is going to help us to identify where we do things. Let me give you a more relevant example. I am a direct communicator, to say the least. I believe that if I want you to stop doing something, my answer is to say, don't do that. I don't like when you do that. Well, it gets the point across, but it's kind of rough around the edges and it could be kind of offensive. So I have to learn how to soften my words and wrap them with my heart. My heart is compassion. My communication is just direct. So I have to work on that. And people had to help me with that feedback. They say when you walk into a room, it feels like this, or when you're communicating, it feels like this. And as a result, I've become a better communicator. Whenever I offer keynote speeches, one of the things I do is I always ask for feedback. And that feedback helps me to get better for the next time. What I always tell my audiences is this. I said, listen, at the end of this talk, I'm going to ask you for some feedback. And the good news is that your feedback is going to really help the next group get a better presentation than you got today. The bad news is you're not going to get the best presentation I can do today because I'm always trying to get better. But just remember, the previous audience, they gave me feedback, so you're getting better than what they got. But it's all about feedback. This is the whole thing. And so if I want to grow, I have to understand that. See, research shows us that feedback impacts performance. Organizations that implement a feedback culture see up to 14% higher performance. That's in the Harvard Business Review. Just because of feedback. Because you don't intend to do things, but just you can naturally begin to get into a place where you do these things or your organization does these things, and you get what I call unintended consequences. See, if there are unintended consequences, you can't plan for them. If there are unintended outcomes, you can't. They take you by surprise. They damage your organization. They impact your infrastructure. So you want to make sure that you open up and give an opportunity for feedback. Let me talk about how one might offer feedback. What we want construction, not condemnation. You've heard of constructive criticism. And so let's talk about the latter first, condemnation. When you're criticizing in a condemning way, condemning means that you are setting up something to destroy it. So even though what you're giving feedback on, it may not have been a positive situation, it may have been a negative situation, how you give the feedback determines the residual impact on your organization. So when you're looking at feedback, if it's a condemning feedback, that means you're setting up that team member to destroy them. Whereas if it's constructive feedback or criticism, we use that word, it will then build you in that situation. Some of the biggest growth moments I've had, or quantum leaps in growth that I've ever experienced, have been on the backside of the mountain of failure. When I failed and I got the right feedback and support, I came back better than ever. That's what we want our feedback to be, is constructive, not condemning. So listen, when you get into a situation within your organization where you're going to offer feedback, this is just like goal setting in many ways. Number one is, when you're going to have these conversations, be specific. Don't sit down and beat around the bush and have some generic, all-inclusive thought. Well, John, your performance overall is good, but we've got a couple challenges and we just need to clean some things up. So work hard and clean some things up. Work hard to clean what up? I don't even know what you're talking about. I thought I was doing a good job, but now you're getting on to me, and now my motivation is down, my morale is down. I'm now self-conscious because you weren't clear. Let's be very specific. Let's not be patronizing. You can always recognize the good. And I told you last time, and I'm going to tell you again, I don't celebrate small victories. I celebrate all victories. So celebration is a part of our culture. When we celebrate as a part of our culture, feedback becomes more acceptable. So be very, very specific as it relates to an area of what you need them to deal with. Now, deal with the behavior. Deal with the challenge, deal with the performance. Don't deal with the personality. When it comes to personality, you're one way, someone else is a different way. That's not feedback. That means you don't like that person's style. What I would suggest you do is get to know the communication styles and behavioral styles. Here at One Voice Leadership, we use DISC as our model. And so when we understand how someone's wired, we like to package our communication in a way that's receivable to them. So in other words, if they're direct, be brief, stay in the moment, in the big picture. Give them a few thoughts to consider and communicate that way. If they're a high personality, engaging person, which means they're probably not going to be detail oriented as much, that person, you want to give them just a few bullet points, digestible information in small bites to be able to help them to get the information they want. Well, then there are people that are rule followers. That's just who they are. They follow every rule. When communicating with them, you'd better give them all of the information, and then don't get offended when they ask you questions, because they are going to ask you questions. That's what they do. And then you have the consummate team player. They want everybody to get along, and they want to get along with them. These people, when they get where they're going, they don't like change. They don't like the environment to be unstable. So you have to communicate with them. And when you are making a change, make sure it's justifiable, but also give them some time to adapt. So now when we give feedback, we can package it because we understand personalities. That's important for us to do that. You need to make sure you understand each other so you can communicate better. I tell people all the time, when you understand how your team members function and how they operate, and you begin to communicate in their language, all you do is win. And then when you're in this situation, which feedback can be an uncomfortable role, it becomes easier when you know how to package that information. Listen, you are listening to Speaking with One Voice with your host, the coach, Rodney Payne. We're here to add value to you and your leadership team each and every week. Thank you for staying focused, staying in tune, liking, subscribing, and rating our podcast. And we are going to continue to be here for you. Let's get back into this catalyst for growth, that thing called feedback. When we look at this, I want to make sure that we are careful how we offer feedback. We talked about being specific. We talked about talking about behavior over personality. And I believe that anytime we're offering feedback, it cannot be one-sided. If you're offering feedback where negative is going to be a part of the equation, you want to find some positive, not made up positives, not patronizing, but really what they're doing well. We have things that we want to celebrate, and then we have opportunities to grow. Okay, opportunities to grow. I love that approach because we're doing positive and negative, and we're having a dialogue, and it's not just me giving you feedback. Remember, anyone who extends or offers feedback must be willing to receive feedback. And so I ask my leaders to talk to me all the time and help me because it becomes done in a joking way almost. Boss, you are direct. Let's calm that down. That's not how you intended to say that. Well, that helps me to always be mindful of what I'm saying and what I'm offering to our clients. I want to make sure that I'm always presenting in the right way. When you learn people's behavior, you learn their fears. When you learn their fears, you learn how to protect or mitigate those things in the right conversation. So use a positive as well as while sharing negative, if it is negative. And I like to repurpose the negative, right? We're going to have failures. We're going to miss the mark. Our goal is to grow. So when I say there's no bad lesson except the lesson that we didn't learn. So if we learn from it, I call it education, not a failure. Now, some education is more expensive than others, and we like to limit what it costs us when we make mistakes. But if we learn the lesson, we'll never make that mistake again. And so we train and we invest on the front end to prepare us ahead of time to avoid mistakes. When we make mistakes, we offer constructive feedback and we learn from the mistakes. We get the education. It may have cost us a little more than we wanted to spend on it, but once we learn it, we have a culture. And our team knows that we care, so our retention is higher. Remember that impacts our onboarding costs and how we get to where we're going. That's how this thing works. So as we look a little bit deeper, when you want to create a feedback-friendly culture, and so it's not always a one-to-one feedback, but think about having panels or forums or putting yourselves in the room so that feedback is not just a behind closed doors one-to-one event, but it's a culture. Let's talk about how we're doing and how we're seeing things. Various departments within your organization will see things differently. And when you give yourself multiple lenses, it's going to help you to capture what's really going on, the essence of the challenge, and you can grow from there. Listen, you're going to hear me keep talking about this because I'm in the studio and I don't have to produce my own podcast anymore. Yes. But in my studio, I have one camera, two lights. I wish you could see this place. I got 4 or 5 cameras and monitors and clocks and all kind of stuff. But what it does is when I go back and look at my podcast, I can get feedback on what's working and what's not working and how we can improve it. That's the goal. The goal of feedback is improving. The goal of feedback is individual growth. When I get better information, when I get better feedback, and then I apply the feedback, guess what? I get better. So in these places of corporate feedback, if you will, the intended goal, the desired outcome is that everyone in that space leave encouraged. Think about that. We want to be better. You all know I'm an avid sports fan. You know that. Many of my followers, you guys know that. I love it when coaches. I'm watching right now. It's in the time of this recording. It's not football season. It's basketball season. But NFL mini camps are going on. Yes, give me some pigskin. Love it. What I'm seeing now is they've got cameras on the quarterback's helmet during their training. So what they're doing is they can see from the view of the camera that sits on the helmet what the quarterback was looking at and what was in their view. Why are they doing that? So that they can offer feedback on what you're seeing and what we want you to see, and we can show you what you didn't see, even though it was in your view. This started years ago, and they had these little diagrams where they fan out and do the same thing, but this is now an actual camera capturing what you're viewing. And that feedback, can you imagine how valuable that feedback is? So what I want you to do is make sure that you have an environment, a place within your organization where people can come and share and receive feedback and leave encouraged. Because the ultimate goal of feedback is we want to learn from the feedback. When you think about various companies that have found success, they have overhauled their entire systems and processes based on feedback. Now, there are two kinds of feedback I want you to kind of catch on our way out of here is there's internal feedback, that's within the organization. Then there's external feedback, that's from the people that we serve. Both are equally important and significant. Why do you think you see all of these surveys and people are asking you to take this quick survey? It's so that we can get better at what we do. What our customers say is important, and I think that many organizations will be customer focused, and they'll think about what their customers say, and they'll overlook the culture of the internal environment. What I want you to do is understand that both are equally as significant. What do our customers say? What does our staff say? And how do we get glowing reviews on both sides that say we're a great place that's satisfactory to work? You know that Google has changed the game. Apple has changed the game on what a work environment looks like. In this day, you're going to be interacting. If you're a leader today, you're going to be hiring some Gen Zers. Gen Zers see things from a totally different prism. They see it looks completely different to them. How do you view it? How do you offer feedback? What's the best way to do that? They just soon sit on a couch, cross their legs, sitting with their legs crossed there, crisscross applesauce, and having a coffee and offering feedback and just talking through it. Whereas in my day, we grew up suit and tie, one side of the desk, other side of the desk, very intimidating and very structured. So you have to determine what does your culture support and what's the best way to get the most authentic feedback. In my day when we did employee surveys, you had to put your name on the survey. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say anything negative with my name on the survey. So you have to create a culture of trust when you do anonymous surveys. That's another way to get great feedback. So I want you to understand, you enhance culture, you increase employee performance, you increase retention. You increase your proficiency and your efficiencies, as well as how well you do your things and how quickly you do them. All of this comes from feedback, leading to satisfied customers, satisfied employees, and you as a leader. There's nothing better than leading a team that is fully satisfied and productive. My friends, I am always excited to be with you, and I want you to remember, you have to have a continuous loop of feedback. You have to have platforms that are safe for group feedback. And you have to have a strategy that says, we paid the price of education to learn this because we were willing to receive feedback. And because of that, We are better now. Woo, my goodness. Anyone challenged? So here's the challenge. I want you to take 3 team members and I want you to invite them one-to-one to come and talk to you. The purpose of this talk is so that they can give you feedback. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to get you 3 to 5 questions that you're concerned about or that are of interest to you. And I want you to prepare them before the meetings. Send them out these questions and say, listen, I want you to come to a meeting with me. We're going to go have coffee or whatever. And I want you to help me grow. That's important. Help me to grow. So I'm going to ask you for some feedback. What I want you to understand is that this is a safe environment. I need your honesty. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm trying to grow as a leader. So I need your help. A lot of people call this a 360 kind of deal. Not going that deep with this, but it's a start. And what will happen is if you have 3 people do it and you have one thing that shows up with all 3 people, you'll know what you need to address. Okay? If you have 3 people do it and you go through this process, you'll create an environment where they feel safe to offer feedback. And then you'll open up an opportunity to also deliver feedback without it being intimidating. You will grow and your organization will grow. Listen, I'm out of time this week. My name is Rodney Payne. I am your host, the coach, here on Speaking with One Voice, where we add value to you and or your leadership team each and every week. Keep following, keep liking, keep subscribing, keep rating, and also go to our website and schedule yourself for a free clarifying strategy session where we can talk about your business, see if we're a good fit, and see how we can help you. I am your host, Coach Rodney Payne. Until next time, my friends, let's keep growing together.
You've been listening to Speaking with One Voice. Please remember to follow Rodney Payne on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Rodney R. Payne. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback, so please feel free to leave us comments. And if you would, rate and subscribe to the podcast, we'd appreciate that as well. Don't forget to set up for notifications so you can get the latest updates and social media posts and get new podcasts when they're released. As always, use the hashtag Speaking with One Voice or simply SWOV on any of your social media posts. On behalf of Rodney Payne, thanks again for listening.